Welcome to lesson 107. Today we're going to be talking about how to add and subtract fractions with like denominators. So first let's review the parts of a fraction. We have the top part of a fraction, which is our 4 here, and the bottom of our part of our fraction. Now those have names, and if you recall the names of these, the top part of the fraction is called the numerator, while the bottom part of the fraction is called the denominator. Now, when we are adding or subtracting fractions, we can think of a fraction and the denominators like waffles. Just like when you add one waffle plus another waffle, you get 2 waffles, you always keep what you're adding the same. It's not like it changes from 1 waffle plus 1 waffle to 2 pancakes. You keep waffles because you're adding waffles. Well, it's the same thing when we're talking about fractions. When we have a fraction like 1/3 with the denominator of 3, plus another third with a denominator of 3, we keep the denominator the same and we only add the numerators, 1 plus 1, which is 2, so we have a total of 2/3. So when we're adding fractions with like denominators, we first add the numerators. 4 plus 5 is 9, and we keep the denominator the same always. And it's the same thing when we're subtracting fractions with like denominators. We need to subtract the numerators. 5 minus 2 is 3, and then we need to keep the denominator the same. So let's do a couple of practice problems. While playing dodgeball, John got 1/4 of the opposing team out, while Sarah got 2/4 of the team out. How much did they get out together? Now together means add, so we're going to do 1/4 plus 2/4 equals, add the numerators, 1 plus 2 is 3, and keep the denominator the same. So they got 3/4 of the team out together. A recipe calls for 1/8 teaspoon hot chili pepper, 2/8 teaspoon black pepper, and 3/8 teaspoon jalapeno pepper. How many teaspoons of pepper did the recipe require? So we're going to add together our parts of a teaspoon of these peppers. I don't want to put in too much or it's going to be super spicy, but we've got 1/8 plus 2/8 plus 3/8, and when we add our numerators, 1 plus 2 is 3, plus 3 is 6, and we keep the denominator the same, which is 8. Melissa ate 1 slice of pizza, which means there's 7/8 of the pizza left. If Greg then ate 5/8 of the pizza, how much of the pizza was left when he finished? So because we see the word left here, we know that that's going to mean subtraction. So we're going to take our bigger fraction, 7/8, and we're going to take away how much Greg ate, which was 5/8, and we're going to subtract the numerators. 7 minus 5 is 2, and keep the denominator the same. Now when we're adding mixed numbers with like denominators, remember that a mixed number means a whole number in front with a fraction attached. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to add the fraction parts, adding the numerators. 4 plus 5 is 9. We're going to keep the denominator the same, and then we're also going to add the whole numbers. When we're subtracting mixed numbers with like denominators, we're going to subtract the numerators, we're going to keep the denominator the same, and then we're going to subtract the whole numbers. So Greg biked 5 2/8 miles, took a break, ate an apple, and afterwards he biked 3 4/8 miles to cross the finish line. How long was the race? Well, to start with, he biked 5 2/8 miles. Then, after his apple break, he biked 3 4/8 more miles. Now, we are going to add our numerators. 2 plus 4 is 6. We're going to keep our denominator the same, which is 8, and then we're going to add our whole numbers. 5 plus 3 is 8. He biked 8 6/8 miles. George jumped 6 3/5 feet on his first jump, and then 5 1/5 foot on his second jump. So how much farther was his first jump than his second? Farther is our key word here, which means subtract. So we're going to subtract 6 3/5, which was his first jump, minus 5 and 1/5, which was his second jump, to find out how much farther he was able to jump the first time. So we're going to subtract our numerators. 3 minus 1 is 2. And we're going to keep our denominator the same. And then we're going to subtract our whole numbers. 6 minus 5 is 1. Now sometimes when we add fractions, we're going to run into something like this. 3 5/10 plus 1 5/10 equals 4 10/10. Now, this cannot be our final answer because look, 10 over 10 is what we call an improper fraction. Now we know that 10/10 is really the same as 1 whole. So we're going to turn 10/10 into 1 whole and add it to our whole number that we have already. So we have 4 plus 1 is 5. So in the race, Martin rode his bike 2 4/6 miles, and then he had to run 3 2/6 miles. So how far did he go in all? Well, we're going to add together our two distances. He went 4 plus 2 is 6, and we're going to keep our denominator the same. Then we're going to do 2 plus 3 is 5. Now notice we have 6 over 6, which really equals 1. So we're going to add 5 plus 1, which equals 6. He biked and ran 6 miles total. And that was lesson 107.